Frequency, cramming 6 months of culinary school into 48 hours. Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I'll understand. Chinese proverb. At FCI 32 we always said raw, medium, and well done. Jay-Z smiled, a rule of thumb. Holding a Peltex fish spatula in one hand, he used its handle to illustrate on his other hand. As he did this, he watched Cosm eat on the stove. I was prepping salsa verde. The next task for me was juicing a few lemons, and Jay-Z looked over his shoulder. Make sure you roll them out by hand first. You'll get twice as much juice. Sure enough, he was right. We were also using sherry vinegar instead of balsamic vinegar, which he recommends to all of his non-cook friends for general use. Most vinegar sold as balsamic isn't even balsamic. It's sweet, fake BS. Genuine balsamic vinegar is aged for decades in a succession of barrels, each made of a different wood. The real McCoy is sold for as much as equally aged scotch and in containers not much bigger than a perfume bottle. Jay-Z, better known as Jeffrey Zrofsky, 33, worked in the kitchens of Chapel Hill, North Carolina, through college, after which he moved to Manhattan to study at the French Culinary Institute. He then honed his craft in some of the most prestigious kitchens in the United States, including Les Rest and Union Square Cafe. Now, as partner and co-founder of Witchcraft, he wears nearly all hats for 16 restaurants and counting. In the week prior to our current meeting, he checked all 60-plus hours of air travel, 6 beds, 3 airlines, 2 continents, and 1 president of a country, Chile, where he was invited to discuss entrepreneurship. As you'd expect of someone this driven, he's methodical. To teach employees to eyeball 2 ounces of sweet potato puree, he modeled the training after Toyota manufacturing, having each person measure the exact amount 10 times with electronic scales in between estimates. On top of this, he'd used the slow dash carb diet to transform his blood work and lose close to 20 pounds of fat. For all of these reasons, he was the perfect architect for my latest experiment, attempting to compress 6 months of culinary school into 48 hours. Here's how our rough schedule looked. Friday night, 7 p.m. Meet Jay-Z in San Francisco. Head to Witchcraft's downtown location on Mission Street to pick up the many fish tubs. Imagine gigantic Tupperware full of food we would need for our odd lunch activity. 8 p.m. Unpack it all and practically drop kick the supplies into my inadequate civilian refrigerator. Saturday, 8:30 a.m. 12:30 a.m. 16 hours of cooking and eating 90-10 split with a 6-person dinner party hosted at 8 p.m. On each day, we aim to cook 4 courses for each of 3 meals. My personal goal was to internalize the principles, not the recipes. Sunday, 10 a.m. 2 a.m. 16 hours of cooking, eating, and post-game analysis 85-5-10 with another 6-person dinner party hosted at 8 p.m. By Sunday morning, both Jay-Z and I had Frankenstein hands. From grabbing salt and washing our hands every 5-10 minutes, they were swollen to 150% of their normal size. Looking at my puffy mitts, wiped endlessly with blue chef's towels, I could vaguely see my heart beating. It was Looney Tunes meets Emeril Lagasse. From wrist to fingertip, we were covered with dozens of visible and invisible nicks. We couldn't have been happier. Little details, big results. How you do anything is how you will do everything. John Wooden, legendary UCLA basketball coach, had his players learn how to put their socks on step-by-step during their first all-team meeting of the season. As Surgeon Achogwan explained in The New Yorker, he had 2 purposes in doing this. First, wrinkles cause blisters. Blisters cause games. Second, he wanted his players to learn how crucial seemingly trivial details could be. Details create success was the creed of a coach who won 10 NCAA men's basketball championships. Below are some of the details acquired over my cramming weekend with Jay-Z. This list alone made the trial well worth it. These are included to give you a taste of things to come, so don't struggle to memorize them. The most important ones will be woven throughout this book in hands-on lessons. As Jay-Z's wife likes to say, practice makes permanent. MICROT reason to use cold water instead of hot water for cooking at home is not because things boil faster or slower. Hot water runs through a hot water heater, which contains the taste. For makeshift spatula and delicious infused taste, put a clove of garlic on the end of a fork. This is perfect for moving around anything you're sautéing, like spinach. Jay-Z picked this up courtesy of Chef Dan Kluger on his first day at Union Square Cafe. Salt beans after cooking. If you salt them during cooking, they take longer to cook. When adding dressing to salad, drizzle it around the outside of the bowl, not on the leaves, then hand mix. This prevents the bulk of the dressing from getting stuck on a few leaves. If you need to truss tie up a chicken so it cooks evenly, but you realize you're out of kitchen twine, you can poke holes in the rearmost fat and stick the legs through the hole so they're crossed, then fold the wings underneath. When labeling, remember 2 points. First, double dip, no drip. To avoid dripping everywhere, ladle up whatever you need, then tap the very bottom of the ladle onto the surface to remove any excess liquid or sauce. Second, always tip the ladle toward you to pour. Have pesky bubbles or film on top of your Cosm filtered stock? Just drag a folded paper towel across the top to clean it up. When frying in oil, always place the food's closest edge down first, so you don't Phantom of the Opera yourself. Jay-Z taught me this technique when it technically didn't matter, which is a point that matters. This won't hurt you, but you need to build the right habits. Macros adding up your mise en place or mez is number 1. Everything must be ready and in its place before you start. Good cooking, especially French cooking, is about economy of movement. Keep your elbows close to your sides. If you move your elbows away from your sides or up toward shoulder height, you'll need to move your feet. If you move your feet, you'll make mistakes. The same principle is taught to surgeons and even wrestlers. If you're doing a lot of cooking, put staples like olive oil and salt in smaller containers for ease of use. We used plastic Chinese takeout soup containers, which also conveniently doubled as measuring cups for 2 cup and 4 cup portions. Critical, forget about cooking as one activity. Think of it henceforth as 1 prep and 2 pickup. In our case, we aim to have everything cooked, or within 10% of cooked, by 3-4 p.m. before our 8 p.m. dinner. This would allow us to put in 30 minutes of pickup later, to serve 4 courses in perfect condition, no racing or nervous breakdowns required. For example, we would cook our pork roast in the afternoon to an internal temperature of 125 degrees F, say, if our just before dinner goal was 135 degrees. Then we'd throw it in a 400 degrees F oven, when we'd sit down to eat appetizers with our guests. 5 to 10 minutes later, it's done. No stress, no mess. Chefs use kitchen towels for everything, and so should you. I suggest you have one for drying hands damp and another for handling hot metal dry. Don't use the wet one for grabbing anything hot. If you do, you'll Chinese dumpling steam cook your palm. Good chefs always keep their dry towel well folded in their apron waist string, so that it's automatically folded over when they grab it. Amateurs tend to haphazardly tuck towels, which inevitably leads to grabbing something that's 400 degrees F with a single layer of cloth, which, you guessed it, doesn't feel good. Grab all pan handles from underneath for more control, never from the top. The magic number for stovetop frying is 350 degrees. You can use less than that to make things soggy and more than that for a fast fry crisping the outside. For cooking perfect French fries, we use both in succession, lower to cook, then higher to crisp. Nothing wet goes on your cutting boards. Use a paper towel to dry off fish, chicken, etc. Moist object slide, and we don't want to chop off those pretty little fingers. Always sear the presentation side, the side that will be face up for diners first, as the second side you cook is most likely to stick. For almost any protein cooked on a stovetop at medium or higher heat, about 4 minutes per inch will get you done. So, if it's 1 thick, cook 2 minutes on each side. If it's 1/2 thick, 3 minutes on each side, and so on. This rule applies up to about 2 thickness. Culinary Cram School, the blueprint will work on the most central techniques throughout this book, but if you want to replicate our madness, here's the blueprint. Find a chef coach to lead the way. Culinary Cram School lesson plan technique, butchery technique, cooking technique, cutting technique, egg cookery technique, guard manger technique, sauce making. Longer-term learning suggestions. Y Combinator, quietly tucked away off Highway 101 just miles from Google headquarters, is named after one of the coolest ideas in computer science, a program that runs programs. Co-founded in 2005 by Paul Graham, Robert Morris, Trevor Blackwell, and Jessica Livingston, YC offers small amounts of capital $14,000, $20,000 to founders in exchange for, on average, 6% of each company. Thousands of applications flow in for dozens of spots in each class, leading to an acceptance rate of 3.5%. The chosen few move to Silicon Valley, refine their companies 24/7 for 3 months, and then pitch investors at demo day. This is where you might find Ashton Kutcher sitting next to a partner from the blue-chip venture capital firm Sequoia. In name, YC is an early-stage or seed-stage investment fund. In reality, it has built something more like a SEAL Team 6 meets Harvard 34 of startup cram schools. The system works. YC-backed startups have an average valuation of $22.4 million. Some get to the billions within a few years of graduation, Dropbox and Airbnb, for instance. Others sell for hundreds of millions, like Heroku $212 million in cash. Brian Chesky, co-founder of Airbnb, says of Paul Graham, the godfather of YC, just as legendary music producer John Hammond found Bob Dylan when he was a bad singer no one knew, Graham can spot potential. If Graham can spot potential, the question I had was, how does he do it? The answer, YC has funded more than 450 startups since 2005. They have a far better sample size than most venture capitalists. I vividly remember my first visit to Y Combinator demo day. The only photograph I took was of a graph labeled the process on a whiteboard, reflective of a good data set, which follows. For many reasons, it fascinated and amused me. First and foremost, I sketched out an eerily similar graph for language learning in 2005, which follows. This sketch, covering roughly 8 months, represented my Japanese learning curve from 1992. Why did I draw it in 2005? Because in 2005, I noticed the same ups, downs, and plateaus, in the same exact order, for my German over 3 months in Berlin. For Spanish, later tackled over 8 weeks, again the same pattern emerged. For complex physical skills, whether over 1 week, 1 month, or 1 year, it was nearly identical. To me, this suggested a few things. It is possible to vastly compress most learning. In a surprising number of cases, it is possible to do something in 10 months that is assumed to take 10 years. The more you compress things, the more physical limiters become a bottleneck. All learning is physically limited. The brain is dependent on finite quantities of neurotransmitters, memories require REM and non-REM and REM sleep or consolidation, etc. The learning graph is not unlike the stress recovery hyperadaptation curves of weight training. The more extreme your ambition, just as in sports, the more you need performance enhancement via unusual schedules, diet, drugs, etc. Most important, due to the bipolar nature of the learning process, you can forecast setbacks. If you don't, you'll increase the likelihood of losing morale and quitting before the inflection point. Based on all I've seen, it's possible to roughly forecast your progress on the back of a napkin. The process, which is optional, is the following. Skip if you find it dense. 1. Pick your world-class top 5% objective, and set your timeline. For this example, we'll use Spanish in 1 month 28 days. 2. Use deconstruction, 80-20, and everything in the learning to nail your materials, determine your sequence, and map out your calendar. 3. To forecast different milestones, work backward from your total allotted time of 28 days. First, we divide our total time units by 8, to reflect the monthly units 8 needed on my graph to reach fluency. Our progress unit is therefore 3.5, 28 days divided by 8. Next, we'll look at the graph and multiply out, based on the location of milestones. We round up, so, sugar high 1 unit, sugar high 3.5 days, 3.5x1, so rounding up, expect a sugar high day 4 of 28 days. Followed by immediate drop in low point day 7, 3.5x2 units. Rapid progress after the low point, followed by plateau day 10.5, 3.5x3, so day 11. Inflection point day 21, 3.5x6. Fluency day 28, 3.5x8. This forecast is subject to your nailing every other step in the learning, of course, and it's a tool of estimation. That said, it can be surprisingly accurate, especially for attempts that last longer than 2 months. And keep in mind that, even if you feel like you failed, you can win. Google co-founder Larry Page once said, even if you fail at your ambitious thing, it's very hard to fail completely. That's the thing that people don't get. Cramming isn't pass-fail. Let's say you attempt culinary cram school, cramming 6 months into 48 hours as I did. Let's then say that you retain only 40% of what was taught. If you develop the motor patterns to continue practicing correctly, which is exactly what happened to me, did you fail? Of course not. Even 40% of 6 months means that you absorb 2.4 months of skills in 48 hours. To keep things practical for most readers, I've set up this book to avoid cramming. You'll cook just twice per week, which is just enough practice to keep skills persistent from one session to the next. For those who want to consider cramming, we'll finish this chapter with a total immersion menu and a few cognitive tricks for making crash courses work. Some weirdos, like me, love the high concentration, high reward sprint. Others will find it masochistic, preferring a zen-like tempo. Both speeds work. The value of 5-10-minute breaks. The serial position effect refers to improved recall observed at the beginnings and ends of lists. Separately, these are called the primacy effect and recency effect, respectively. Memorizing a hypothetical list of 20 words, your recall might look something like this. This mid-list dip can be observed in study sessions as well, so a 90-minute session might resemble the below graph. We can dramatically improve recall by splitting that single session into 2 sessions of 45 minutes with a 10-minute break in between. Total culinary immersion resources. To maximize learning by osmosis while writing The 4-Hour Chef, I went all in with 24/7 immersion. What follows are some of the tools that kept me excited about cooking and that steepened the learning curve, not always both. Short TV. I use Roku and Amazon Prime to stream when I can. Escape to River Cottage and Return to River Cottage. This is by far my favorite food series, and Escape to River Cottage is the strongest. Absolutely wonderful. Heston Blumenthal's In Search of Perfection on YouTube. Top Chef Season 6, Episode 13 Goodbye to Vegas features Thomas Keller, Jerome Bacchus, son of Paul Bacchus, and assimilated Bacchus door, The Olympics of Food. After Hours with Daniel Blue. If you've ever wondered which chefs talk about over drinks late at night, this is the series for you. A Day in the Life Morgan Spurlock series, free on Hulu. What does a typical day look like in the lives of Mario Buckley or Stephanie Izzard? The former is now a celebrity chef, and the latter is the first female winner of Top Chef, who is still focused on creating the perfect restaurant. These 30-minute profiles are perfect pre-bed snacks. For those interested, I also have a profile, which was filmed while writing this book. Movies. I suggest alternating between fiction and documentaries. Documentaries: Jiro Dreams of Sushi Japan, the most beautifully shot food film I've ever seen. During my last trip to Tokyo, I ate at the Younger Brothers restaurant, where he was the consummate host. A Matter of Taste, serving up Paul Lee Branch USA, the perfect introduction to the trials and tribulations of being a chef, even or, perhaps, especially a brilliant one. Pressure Cooker USA, this is the only real tearjerker, a life-affirming story of a culinary teacher in Philadelphia, who trains students to win full scholarships. Garlic is as good as 10 Mothers USA, Les Blank's incredible and funny movie about one ingredient, garlic. Features wonderful vintage footage of Alice Waters and early era chess penis. Kings of Pastry, France, Netherlands, United Kingdom, who knew pastry could be a full contact sport. Just as in Pressure Cooker, you'll notice that all the coaches are awesomely brutal. Le Cirque, A Table in Heaven USA, before you open that restaurant you've always dreamed of, watch this and The Restaurateur. These are the troubles that even the best in the world have, so consider yourself forewarned. The Restaurateur USA followed Danny Meyer through the opening of 11 Madison Park. Be sure to watch the epilogue in the special features section. Eat This New York, USA, a cautionary tale of opening a restaurant when you're not ready for it. My favorite part is the chef interviews in the DVD extras. El Palo, El Pez, y El Cangrejo Real, the chicken, the fish, and the king crab. Spain covers the training of one Spanish competitor invited to the 2006 vodka store. Non-documentaries like Ratatouille USA Pixar rules. That said, Julie and Julia USA, though a controversial film among foodies, it is a must-see for any new cooking student, in my opinion. Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, Taiwan, USA. This wonderful movie is worth watching just for the intro sequence. I love Taiwan and Taiwanese food. Tampopo, Japan, a Japanese Eli that predates I'm Eli. Watch this on a Friday night prior to cheat day, since you'll immediately want to eat ramen. Babette's Feast, Denmark, very somber, but the ending makes it awesome. You won't forget the punchline. Like water for chocolate, Mexico, sexy, sexy, sexy. Great date movie. Perfume, the story of a murderer, France, Germany, Spain. This is not technically about food, but about smell. Big Night, USA, one of the most quotable food movies of all time. Chefs like this one, probably because Tony Shalhoub loves food and hates his dumb-ass customers. The god of cookery, Hong Kong, the most ridiculous of the bunch. Have some brownies, wink, wink, and enjoy the Stephen Chow Show and soccer, kung fu hustle delight. The broken English subtitles make it twice as funny. Magazines, there are many wonderful food magazines, but here are 3 you might not see on local newsstands. Cooks Illustrated.com. The Art of Eating, Gastronomica.org. Travel Cooking Kit. While traveling, I checked a polar probe thermometer and timer, a 6-chef's knife with a blade guard, and a small plastic cutting board, so I could conduct experiments in hotel rooms. Books: Becoming a Chef, Andrew Dornenberg, Karen Page, Mission Street Food, Anthony Mint, Karen Leibowitz, The Whole Beast, Nose to Tail Eating, Fergus Henderson, White Heat, Marco Pierre White, The River, Got It to Meet Book, You Firmly Witting, Small Law Technique, Jacques Pepin, The River Cafe Cookbook and Variants, Rose Gray, Ruth Rogers, Culinary Artistry, Andrew Dornenberg, Karen Page, The Kitchen Diaries, A Year in the Kitchen with Nigel Slater, The Von Restorff effect. The Von Restorff effect, also called the novel pop-out effect, correlates unique items in a list to better recall. For example, if the 5th item in a word list uses a unique color or larger font size, it will be better remembered than others. This is perhaps obvious. What isn't obvious is that planting odd material in the middle of a session can produce a macro Von Restorff effect. Let's assume we have a list of 100 plain Jane, high-frequency words, split into 50 words per 45-minute session. The recall will adjust, as it did in the primacy and recency effect graph. Now we spike the punch in the middle of each 45-minute session, injecting 2 4 idiomatic phrases that are sexually related for minutes 20, 25. There are 2 content changes, the sexual content and, almost as important, the word toe phrase. In my experience, the memory curves can then morph into the above graph. Instead of averaging out at 60%, 70% recall over a week, say, we can get well over 80%. Furthermore, it's a more sustainable and pleasant learning approach. This is the approach I use with the Linkword method to achieve more than 85% retention of 350 Italian words 72 hours, after cramming them into 12 hours. But what about the 10,000-hour rule? For those not on the bandwagon, the so-called 10,000-hour rule is based on a study by K. Anders Ericsson and was popularized by the Malcolm Gladwell book Outliers. It dictates, in simple terms, that becoming world-class at something requires 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. This number has been correlated with top violinists and aviators, and Malcolm extended this theory to well-known greats like the Beatles and Bill Gates. Accumulating 10,000 hours requires 20 hours a week for 10 years. So, how can I claim that becoming world-class is attainable within 6 months? There are a few reasons, most of which I think Malcolm would agree with. First, I define world-class very specifically, the top 5% in a given field. For Japanese, let's say, it's having greater conversational fluency than 95 out of 100 people who study Japanese. For the deadlift, a 650 pounds pull from the knees at a body weight of 165 pounds puts me above 95 out of 100 male gym members. That said, I'd be laughed off the platform by competitive powerlifters. But these powerlifters are in the top 0.5%, and we're aiming for the top 5%. 3-5 correlation, e.g., A and B are found together doesn't mean causation A causes B. The fact that 10 out of 10 top violinists practice 10,000 hours over a certain period of time doesn't mean that this volume is what made them world-class. Imagine all of them are Asian. Does being Asian automatically make you a good violinist? Of course not. There are too many variables. It's nearly impossible to show cause and effect with observational versus experimental data. Training method can have an exponential impact on per-hour yield. My before and after experience with Spanish proves this, as have my readers' experiences in dozens of areas. People who are singularly focused on a career in a highly competitive field, e.g., concert violinists, are incentivized to practice as much as possible. In other words, if your professional future depends 100% on one skill, you'll put in as many hours as your body and schedule will tolerate. This doesn't mean 10,000 plus hours are required, but if this is your one ticket in life, are you going to take a risk by doing less? No. Once again, correlation does not equal causation. Patterns can be meaningful, but so can anomalies. If we look at the Olympics from 1920 to 1967, most high jump medalists used a straddle technique or scissor jump to clear the bar. In 1968, Dick Fosbury, to the laughter of spectators, went over backward in what was nicknamed the Fosbury flop. He laughed last and won the gold medal. Now, almost 100% of competitors use some variation of this technique. Had we stopped our data collection at 1968, we would have considered him nothing more than a statistical outlier and removed him from the calculus. The Fosburys of the world matter. Technology also matters. How did Fosbury make his breakthrough? Partially, it was because the landing surface changed in the mid-1960s from a hard surface sand, hay, and sawdust that required a feet-first landing to a soft cushion that allowed for new experimentation. Today, $100, 30 frame per second cameras and the internet, to name just 2 advances, improve both access to expertise and the speed of the feedback loop. Take, for instance, how I learned to pop up on a surfboard. Prior to a planned trip to Costa Rica, I found myself in Berlin, with no beach or pool in sight. I connected via Skype video with Rab Gurlick, formerly the #1 ranked surfer in the world. In 2006, he won the prestigious Billabong XXL by successfully riding a 68-foot wave in Todos Santos, Mexico. Now, he's turned his mind to teaching. To start, he forced himself to surf switch stance opposite foot forward just so he could better communicate the mechanics. From inside a rainy apartment in Germany, I watched him demonstrate technique in Los Angeles, after which I turned the camera on myself and listened to his coaching. The tools of learning are not fixed, nor is the amount of time needed to become world-class.